right, good evening and good night. Welcome to the It's Your Perspective Talk Show. It is Wednesday, April 6, 2016. My name is David, a.k.a. Kimber, a.k.a. Christian, alongside
Bingy Soup.
Yeah, Soup, we back?
Yes, I.
Yeah, we're back in the studio again here, man. I just want to say that this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, weekly 8 p.m. until. We do have a telephone number, 340-201-9005. You can also text us on that number as well. But most importantly, you have to go to our website, streaming live from the VI.com. Go to that website, click on the tab that says Watch Us Live. And you'll be able to see the show tonight because we do have a special guest coming up here shortly. We do have email, streaming live from the VI at yahoo.com. We're in a high-tech, low-tech studio, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. No radio, no TV, internet only. Get your iPhone, your iPad, your Mac or your Windows PC. Open up your browser, type in streaming live from the VI.com. Be able to see the show. Text your friends, Facebook your friends. Let them know that this is the show they got to be watching tonight. All our recorded live shows are on YouTube and Ustream.tv. We got 2 Facebook pages. Definitely want to give a mad shout out to CHS Class of 1982. Soup and I were just looking at our yearbook here, reminiscing about some of our classmates, you know, here, there, and everywhere. Wish them all well. If you're out and about, link us up. But most importantly, to all our past guests, thanks for being on our show. We're on Twitter. Tweet with us at VI Perspective. We're moving straight forward and up. The show's mission is just to inform, entertain, and empower everyone. And so, you ready to bless that mic?
Yes, I.
Bless that mic, man.
All praises be to the living eye, Jah Rastafari, Kidama Wayne Paddy Selassie the First. This is a speech from His Majesty on fundamentals, values, and the moral power of higher education. Considering the role of universities in a broader sense, we are persuaded that these institutions stand today as the most promising hope for constructive solutions to the problems that beset the modern world. Problems which prevent the peaceful cooperation of nations, problems which threaten the world and humanity with death and disaster. From the university must come men, ideas, knowledge, experience, technical skills, and the deep humane understanding vital to fruitful relations among nations. Without these, world order for which we have so long strived cannot be established. From the university too must come the ability which is the most valuable attribute of civilized men everywhere. The ability to transcend narrow passions and to engage in honest conversation. For civilization is by nature the victory of persuasion over force. Unity is strength. No nation can divide within itself and remain powerful. It is this strong conviction that underlines the decision to plan for the well-organized and the coordinated system of education, training, and research which a university represents. A university is the foundation of learning. Seek knowledge, and there you shall find it. Nor can we ignore the importance of the spiritual in this academic life. Learning and technical training must be nurtured by the faith in Jah, reverence for the human soul, and the respect for the reasoning mind. There is no safer anchorage for our learning, our lives, and our public actions than that provided by the divine teachings coupled with the best in human understanding. Leadership developed here should be guided by the fundamental values and the moral power which have for centuries constituted the essence of our religious teachings. These are crucial times when nations rise against nations, tensions increase, and the disaster is possible at any moment. Distances are shrinking. Peace and life are threatened by misunderstanding and conflict. Now is the time when the sincere belief in man's kinship to Jah must be the foundation for all man's efforts of enlightenment and learning, the basis for all understanding, cooperation, and peace. We charge of you, the members of this university, that these special values remain foremost as the foundation for our knowledge and thought, so that the fundamental moral truths will bolster and support the whole structure of university life. Discipline of the mind is a basic ingredient of genuine morality and therefore of spiritual strength. Indeed, a university taken in all its aspects is essentially a spiritual enterprise which, along with the knowledge and training it imparts, lead students into a more wise living and a greater sensitivity to life's responsibilities. Up to the present, technical training has been achieved to the College of Engineering and the ETU Swedish Building College. These institutions we trust, which are now merging to the university, will be expanded and developed so that the number of competent Ethiopian technicians will continue to increase. We give thanks and praise for the words of Kedamawi Empire Selassie the First.
Yes, sir, Soup.
Yes, I.
Thanks for blessing us with that right there, man.
Master.
I just want to say that our guest tonight is Dr. Juliette Jarvis-Pennyman. She's going to be on the phone. She's calling in. Should be calling here just about a couple of minutes. She's a Crucian, and she serves as an assistant superintendent of schools in the greater Philadelphia area. Dr. Juliette Jarvis-Pennyman.
Yes,
And
sir.
of course, we're going to be talking about education and how important it is. Going to be some talks maybe on the Common Core curriculum, Soup.
Right.
Is that helping? Is it a good way to go? But I did post some questions on Facebook a little while ago.
Right.
What are those questions there? Let me see if I can find them real quick. Question number one is, what is the best way to deliver an effective education to our children? That's the first question. Do you think you are educated well enough? If you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, do you think when you went through elementary, junior high, and high school, were you educated enough? And what would
you mean in wherever you at?
Yeah,
whatever part of the world you got.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Would you get? We're here in the Virgin Islands, so if you went to public school here or private school,
okay.
Yeah. Do you feel you were educated enough? Is the second question, and the third question is, what would you change about the education system to make it better? We know there's the issue of teachers not getting paid enough. Not enough books, not enough cleaning supplies, leaky roofs. All these things are just sort of affecting, I guess, in some capacity, all school systems. All school systems have their issues.
Yeah.
But I know that here in the Virgin Islands, we actually
we have closed schools too. We have two schools closed right here in St. Croix.
Yeah.
Right now, our elementary school and a junior high school.
Because of roof?
Well, it's just structural conditions.
Yeah.
They just can't be able to continue to house classes in there, and it was not conducive for teaching and learning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, leaky roofs are not a good thing, man. Water could come down, the roof could fall on the kids, students.
And the next thing too, we had last week 1.1 million was dedicated to education. And I felt that whole 4.5 million should have gone directly to education department, because right now the whole education system need to be revamped and relooked at.
Yeah, you're talking about that money that was given to us.
From the Interior Department.
Yeah.
So again, we really need to, if we are really serious, what would you do to change education here?
Okay.
That's a serious issue,
Juliette, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Okay. We are live right now, live and direct. Our guest has finally called in. On the line with us here is Dr. Juliette Jarvis-Pennyman. She's a Crucian, and she's here from St. Croix, Assistant Superintendent of Schools in the greater Philadelphia area. How you doing tonight, Juliette?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Okay.
We are well. I'm well. And you? Good. Nice to hear you again.
Yes, same here.
Yes, sir.
Well, you were on our show a couple weeks back. Not a couple weeks back, more like 2, 3, 4 months back.
Right.
We had Wasi was here co-hosting with me on that, and so we got you back on. Soup's here now, and so you saw the questions that I posted on Facebook, right?
I did. Yes, I did. The 3 questions.
Yes. So maybe we should start with that. We kind of just said the questions a few minutes before you called, but maybe we should kind of start with that. And
Okay.
so the first question, Juliette, is what is the best way to deliver an effective education to our children, or for our children?
Well, the best way to deliver an effective education to our children would be to begin with the end in mind. That would be the first thing, where we are, where we want the students to be. Then you have to take into consideration, when planning effective instruction and education, you have to take into consideration the whole child. You have to think of that child from pre-K all the way through 12th grade, but you have to think of the diverse needs of each child. You have to think about the gifts within each child, the learning styles of each child, how they process. And you also have to think about the 21st century skills for that child. You have to be in the moment when you're planning. You have to serve the students that they will be able to, leave school, leave the public schools, and then go on to, college or career, whatever they need, but definitely making sure that we plan for them that they may be productive within the 21st century. Keeping in mind the whole child.
Okay.
So I mean, Juliette, that everybody have to be involved. That is involved in this child life. The parents, caregivers.
Yes, all stakeholders must be a part of it. You have to have the community involved. You have to have the parents involved. You have to have the students themselves involved. You have to have the teachers involved, the principals, the custodians, whoever touches those children, all stakeholders on a daily basis. But we have to keep the main thing in mind, which are the students when we're planning. We're planning for the students. Right. We're serving the students.
Okay. So that in your estimation is probably the most effective way to deliver. So how are we falling short now? Because there's a lot of issues in the world. There's crime and there's this, that, and the other. But there's also education and the lack of it, and the lack of
it's not being delivered properly.
We have dropouts. Teachers not getting paid enough. We
find too that a lot of students is saying that school is boring. That's one of the things that we find. We hear a lot. School is boring. Yeah, but you're there for a reason. So.
Well, instruction cannot be taught in one way. Like I said, we have to have technology integrated.
Right.
We also have to give the teachers the professional development that they need. We also have to integrate hands-on activities. You have to address, again, the whole child. You have to think about their learning styles. Every child learns differently. And now, it's no longer a sit at my desk and deliver. The students have to be engaged. They have to be a part of the process, a part of the learning, so that they can use their own metacognitive skills to be able to understand the process. When we were younger and we went to school, it was okay for us to just, read a passage, and then we could do things like use the context clues to come up. But now we're in an era of stating the actual evidence from a text.
Right.
And now we have to integrate them or expose them to fictional as well as non-fictional texts. And the more real life experiences they read about, complex text, then the better off they would be. But they now have to be able to, you could use the context clues, yes, but you're going to have to dive into what that story or what that passage is saying, and you have to pull out the actual evidence. So, for example, we can see an example would be, Apple has developed a new iPhone. We can, and you could, what we're reading about this iPhone is that it's thinner. They've gone back to a smaller size. Now everyone is saying that the larger iPhones or the larger phones are now too big, etc. Yada, yada, yada. So those students will have to then go into that passage and quote exactly what Apple is saying or what Samsung is going to come out with, or the other makers of the phone.
Right.
So definitely, like I said, it's now an age and era of stating factual information. And then when it comes to math, that was maybe a literacy example I gave you. Now, when it comes to math, it's more like they now need to know the process of coming up with the answers.
Right.
So, for example, when we were younger, we would learn our multiplication tables, which is a rote memorization type of learning. That is still very important. However, though, math vocabulary is more important now. They need to know, that multiplication, when you see the word of, it also means to multiply groups of something. So they have, and then they have to go through and learn the process. So now when their teacher teaches them something, they can learn it that one way, but now the students have to then in turn take it and be able to come up with their own way, along with the teacher's way of understanding how to solve a problem. And the premise behind that is that true understanding takes place when later on, when you watch a child and they're able to sit down and have a conversation and use those skills and integrate them, within the subject areas, or have a discussion, or if they're having a discussion with someone in a more global audience or the more global community, they're still able to sit down and have a conversation about an algebra problem based on the processes.
Okay.
So how soon in the child's life, doctor, do we start to implement this? This way of thinking, this way of processing, this way of evaluating?
Well, everything to be starts, from preschool. You have to think when you're planning for children, you have to think pre-K through 12, and they have to be exposed, to different kinds of experiences. And it doesn't always mean that they have to be able to go, to travel and everything. We can bring the experiences to students by, through their instruction, through their engagement, and through books and through, conferencing or virtual, making partnerships with students in other countries. Using technology, we can connect that way. Right. There's just so much out there now, that can really expose children. But to answer your question, we should begin with preschool. Children come to us as empty slates, and we should not expect anything else, because as an educator, as a former teacher, principal, assistant principal, special ed teacher, I've always said the word teach is in teacher. We are to teach, and it's all about teaching and learning. Right. And so it is our responsibility to make sure that we're delivering the instruction to the children. And then if we want the supports of the community and from the parents, it's our obligation to communicate and then to have those workshops for the community and the parents, and to go to them and tell them, we need your help, and here's how you can help us.
Okay.
Children.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So those are just some of the things. But we have to involve all stakeholders. But we just can't say we want it. It has to be interactive, and we have to be intentional about it. And we can't sit back in the public schools and say we want it. We have to. If it's not coming to us, right, we have to be passionate and proactive enough to go out and get it.
Okay.
Because it's not. All right.
So let me ask you a question, Doctor. We went to school here in the Virgin Islands with no technology, and now technology is present. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, we were able to get through school and learn and get educated, and now you have technology, you have the internet and classes online, and do we really need technology in school to learn?
Oh, absolutely, because they're diverse learners again, and the 21st century calls for technology. It calls to teach children to think globally. You can have books and everything, but it's the millenniums and it's the age of the students that, they're going to learn quicker, some of them from an iPad or from being on the computer, because that is what they know. We were a different generation. No, we didn't have all this, but so, out of sight, out of mind, you don't miss something you never had. But now that these children have been exposed to this technology, it is very important for them to use technology, or they will be lost in the 21st century if they're not learning how to use technology to problem solve. But we have to make sure that we are giving the teachers the professional development they need, and to take the fear away from them take the fear away from some of them about technology, because the research says and shows that teachers who integrate technology within their classroom on a daily basis, students always seem to show the highest achievement.
Okay. I don't know. I guess in a sense, when I talk about the technology now and lack or no technology back then, now, it's almost in a sense, you can just go online and Google 2 times 2 and find out that it's 4, but you don't know how you came about the answer of 4. I mean, there needs to be some kind of, some theory on how to get to the answer of 4.
Well, that should be going on within the classroom. I said technology should be integrated, whereas first, you have to set up your lessons. All of the lessons that are there now, you're going to have the basic way of teaching, going back, teaching the vocabulary, giving them, maybe dry erase boards where, you can either start with the technology or you can end with the technology, either way. But they have to be shown many modes of learning. And another thing that we have to do with children and technology is to teach them that technology is more than an entertainment tool. It is a tool that's a skill that they can learn a skill from. A lot of times, we have our children and we give them these games and all they do is play games. But technology, we have to really remind them, is more than just for entertainment purposes.
Okay.
It's a life skill.
Okay.
Yeah, but too, doctor, at a young age too, I understand everything that you're saying too, and I'm going back to what Kimber's saying too. When we were coming up, because we didn't have the technology, it did not limit us. So, to me, I like the technology in school, but in some points in era, it becomes to me like a distraction, and it keeps them back a certain way. Because today, just for instance, I'm just saying in general in life. Before we could have remembered numbers. We could have keep 10, 24 numbers in our head. Off the top of our head, we could have spelled out our phone number. Now today, we use our phones and we just go by names. If we lose the phone, we can't remember the number.
Yeah.
So it limits us, and yet it still advances us.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. It does advance us. And like I said, but we also have to remember, when we did some of that, it was for rote memory. It was short term. Some of that short term. Whereas, when you teach children now, you have to really instruct them for their long term memory. Whereas when technology is an assistive tool, it's not the end all be all.
Right.
There's some students that still. That's when I say you have to really think about the whole child. There's still some students that aren't going to get it through technology, but you have to expose them to that way of learning, and then they choose which way comes easiest to them. Where some of them still need, we have to still sit down, like I said, and work the problems out so that they can see the process. But the technology still needs to be embedded, because there are just some students who are going to pick it up. That way you can start with the technology by introducing, or you can end with the technology. You can start a lesson by having warm-ups. You can use the technology for that and then go into the processes. Or at the end, you can bring in the technology, or you can embed it in between. But teaching a one way to all students is you're just not going to get to each student, because they all learn differently.
I wish we had technology when we were coming up in school, man. I guess we'd be a little smarter, right? If we had technology.
Well, I think we did pretty all right, I think we came out pretty okay, So,
all right. So, doctor, we have a text. Someone sent a text here, and this person is saying that. There are some major components missing in our education system. We need to increase the opportunity for students to engage in project-based learning, cultural education, governance and financial literacy, understanding of science-based careers and technology. So any kind of thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Project, again, that's why I said when you go back, you have to think of the whole child.
Right.
That means project-based learning is very important. Project-based learning is when the child comes up with a project. They can come up with a project to show that they have the understanding, that they've grasped the instruction. That's one way that a child can be assessed through project-based learning. It is not always through. We should have many modes of assessing students and showing that students have true understanding. So, for example, those schools that have an international baccalaureate program, which is an IB, which is a international baccalaureate program, you can earn a diploma that way. Part of their curriculum is that they have to come up with a project, a self-project, and then they have to come up with some kind of a community project. Those are just some things you can embed. So definitely, project-based learning is important, very important for students. And yes, financial literacy is important. Those are things that students can have and should be embedded, as electives for students. But financial literacy can also be taught throughout a math course. It can be taught throughout social studies course, a literacy course. So what we have to do is to teach each subject through the curriculum, integrate each subject, embed each subject. So you can teach science from math, you can teach math to science, music can be brought into teaching math. So that's where you have to really craft an effective, educational delivery system, and you have to be savvy at how to embed that.
Okay.
And so that students are exposed to all kinds of learning. So I'm definitely a proponent of project-based learning. Yes, that's just one way that you can tell that a child truly understands something. I mean, when we were growing up, we always liked giving presentation. We always liked giving projects. One of the best things I used to like to do with my students is when I taught them, we had like a social studies, and we would have like a museum type where the children would come in and they would dress as, maybe characters they learn. And then, we would invite the community in and they would go up and they would ask questions. So let's say you would learn about Benjamin Banneker. If you were Benjamin Banneker, you were dressed as Benjamin Banneker and you were able to tell, what you learned about Benjamin Banneker. You wrote about it. You learned about it. You did a project about it. You said it. And it's just like science fairs are so important to these days. I mean, in the 21st century. Any schools or any school districts or any communities that is not engaging the students in science fairs from at least fourth grade on, fourth grade on, that is, they're going to be at a loss. So science fairs are very important also.
To Doctor, what's happening here in Ansenkra, well, in the territory too, is like they're not implementing the cultural part of our heritage here in our education. Mm-hmm. The VI education is on the books, but they don't really teach it. They don't force it to make it come along. So now our youths, them when they come up here, they don't know nothing about the local heroes themselves or anything like that.
Like Queen Mary and all those folks that we learned about growing up. Right?
Exactly. So now today it's not happening.
So you're absolutely correct, and that can happen because when we teach children, we teach them the skill, and you can use the VI history to deliver the skill. So let's say we want to teach the skill of women empowerment, okay,
right,
or conflict resolution. We can then pull in the history to teach those skills. There is nothing saying that we cannot integrate that, the history, right, of the Caribbean or the Virgin. You can, but you have to focus on the skills and then find how you embed the history to get the skill across to the child, because the end result is for the child to be able to know the skill. So yes, there are ways to pull that in. There's nothing stopping anyone from doing that. But you have to concentrate on teaching standards and skills. And then as long as they learn those standards and skills, they should be able to apply it to any situation.
Okay. Could you tell us what, in your view, is educational standard? What do you base educational standards on? Or what is an educational standard?
Okay, so when you say education, so right now I believe, and that, well, the Virgin Islands has adopted the Common Core standards, right?
Yes.
So I think the last time I was on the show, I went over those. So, their literacy standards, and some of them I spoke about earlier. And the Common Core, people have to stop. There is such a lack of understanding or just misguided about the Common Core. The Common Core, you don't teach the Common Core, okay? You teach the standards which come from the Common Core. And the Common Core standards, were standards that were, formed by teachers and various educators and non-educators. Well, basically educators.
Okay.
And different stakeholders. But the pieces, they're rigorous, and again, it goes back. I think a lot of reasons why we have so many issues is that we expect the teachers to educate the students, but we don't do a good job at effectively educating the teachers on how to deliver the instruction. And we have to be relentless at that, because we have to think of the outcomes of, what should happen, when a teacher, leaves those children. And I don't want to be put in a classroom if I'm not prepared. I just don't want to be told, well, you have to deliver this. You have to teach me, because, times are different.
Right.
And we have to even go into the higher ed pieces. Like I said, begin with the end in mind. We have to go into the teacher places that are preparing teachers to go into the classrooms. And there has to be more collaboration with the colleges and universities and other teacher preparatory programs, and letting them know what we need from them within the school so that they can prepare the teachers. I think it should be longer than, a semester, when a teacher just goes into a school and student teaches for 12 weeks. That's not enough. That's why we have so much teacher burnout. I think it should be ongoing from the first year, second semester. That's just my 2 cents, that teachers should be embedded within the schools and the school districts.
So, Doctor, what is the benefits of having Common Core within our school system here for us here?
Well, because the benefits of using the Common Core standards in the school system in the Virgin Islands, it's because it is common throughout. It's equity. It brings equity. I didn't say equality. I said equity. And it brings equity across schools, across school districts, with what has been delivered. So, and I'm going to explain the standards to you in just a minute, but we need to go back and ask, what is the root cause? How did the Common Core come into be? So the Common Core came into be because students were going to colleges, and they noticed that even students who were taught in the higher performing school districts, as well as the students that were taught in the lower performing school districts, were coming into college but were needing remediation courses.
Right.
They were not prepared, and it just was not in the inner city or the urban. The minority students who were attending the suburban school districts and even some private schools were not ready when they got to college. So they had to go back and take writing courses. They had to go back and take remedial math courses, to really help them get ready. So what the Common Core does, it brings equity. There are a set of standards. And now it's not mandated that the state adopts the standards, okay? Each state has a choice. The Virgin Islands had a choice.
Okay.
Each state has a choice. But what it does, like I said, it's equity. And like I said, the Common Core has nothing to do with not bringing the VI history into the school. That's not. You're teaching skills and you're teaching standards. So what has to happen is that there should be a meeting of the minds, the curriculum directors, etc., teachers, and they have to sit down now and look at the VI history and say, okay, in literacy, how are we going to embed the VI history? Which story are we going to use, to teach? And then when it says all you're doing is teaching children, you have to state evidence from text. You can read about, our history and teach them how to state, evidence-based answers. There's just some ways, lots of ways that you can. You just have to be really, intentional and get the professional development that you need to be able to write the local curriculum to deliver the standards. And that's something that, that we're taught, that I've done it for you, that we're taught, in districts throughout, the U.S. And so if you think you're teaching the subject, then you're just teaching the subject, but you're not teaching the subject. You have to keep in mind that you're teaching a standard, you're teaching a skill.
Doctor, let me ask you a question. Something I printed off online today. It kind of falls under what they call myths about content and quality in an area of math. And it says the standards do not prepare or require students to learn algebra in 8th grade, as many states current standards do. So that's the myth. And then it says here the fact, the standards do accommodate and prepare students for Algebra 1 in 8th grade by including the prerequisites for this course in grades K through 7. Students who master the K through 7 material will be able to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. And at this time, grade 8 standards also include rigorous algebra that will transition students effectively into full Algebra 1 course.
And you're absolutely right. That is a myth. But what has to happen now is that school district has to go back and realign and scaffold their curriculum to look at when they're teaching certain things. Because and this is all, again, beginning with the end in mind. When a child takes the SAT, if they haven't had up to at least Algebra 2, they're not going to be successful on the SAT.
Right.
So what we are doing across the United States now is going back and looking at our local curriculum, scaffolding, looking at what grade level we teach algebra, what grade level we teach pre-algebra, and looking at what resources we're using from pre-K through 12. And it has to scaffold and spiral. And, so that's what has to happen. You just can't keep the same local curriculum and the same curriculum mapping timeline. You have to go through and you have to dissect it, and you have to make it meet the needs. But you have to know what is needed by the time the child finishes 12th grade. Begin there and begin with the end in mind and work your way backwards. So we're across the United States right now. A lot of schools, districts, we have had to go back and rearrange our curriculum and figure out when we need to teach students pre-algebra. And so right now, pre-algebra, a lot of schools are teaching pre-algebra in 6th grade, 7th grade. And then by the time they get to 8th grade, they're in Algebra 2, some 9th grade, maybe even up to 10th. But you have to look at your local curriculum. But again, you cannot just give the teachers this and say, go teach it. We're going to, rearrange our local curriculum. They must have the professional development they need to deliver the instruction. And once they do that, do not make sure we don't scare them with the whole evaluation piece. Like anything else, it takes time to learn, but teachers have to become comfortable at asking questions without thinking that asking a question that they're going to be penalized for it. Okay. Because again, we have to realize, take the self out of it and think of the children. They're the end result. They're the ones that's gaining from our delivery. And so, we have professional development is huge. Task analyzing, breaking things down into chunks. Just like the children are diverse learners, the teachers are diverse learners. And we all have different learning styles. And we have to make sure that we we cater to the learning styles of the teachers as we do for the students.
Okay. Another, as I read on here, and it's another section here, myths about content and quality, English language, arts, and literacy. The myth here says the standards are just vague descriptions of skills and do not include a reading list or any other reference to content.
So the Common Core should not be giving anybody a reading list. Let's go back there again. Why do you want someone to pick a reading list for you? First of all, most resources can come with a reading list, but here's a great time again to go and embed some of those readings about our local Virgin Islands history by concentrating on the skill you're thinking. You don't want anybody to get there's reading list examples all across the internet that you can find. But then again, you take the creativity from the teachers, you take the creativity from the local district. That is not the goal of the Common Core, all right? And you don't want that because you know your audience well. And you know so again, go back, concentrate on the skills and the standards. See, I've said this before, and so when you think of a triangle, okay? And at the top of the triangle, we have the Common Core state standards, okay? In the middle of the triangle would be, I guess the Virgin Islands uses, is the smart balance test they use. I guess in Pennsylvania, we use the Pennsylvania State, the PSSA, standards assessment test.
Right.
So I guess in the Virgin Islands, you use a smart balance. And then at the bottom, the bottom of the triangle is the foundational piece of the local curriculum. You get results if you have an effective, efficient, quality core curriculum. It is what happens in that classroom and that school building every day that's going to get you. So forget about the Common Core. Forget about the smart balance. Make sure that your local curriculum is intact and it's serving the needs of all students. You have targeted interventions. Targeted interventions. When you give interventions to students, it must be targeted to the skills of the individual child, what they need. Targeted is the word. So you get your best bang from your local curriculum. That is where. So make sure that you're delivering. Go and pick your own books, or go and pick your books. Yeah, definitely, a lot of times the teachers say, "Oh, we don't want to script it." Well, when you're going to give a list of books, that becomes scripted. You should be able to just look at, at the standards and the skills and go pick the books you need to address the skills and the standards. So, definitely, I would want a reading list. You can have a reading list to help supplement, but you can also look at your reading list and say, "Well, what do I have? That's comparable." That, again, I could embed the VI history and still teach them the skills they need. So I can go through for you, if you would like, the pre-K through, I can explain the shifts, in the standards and in literacy.
Yes,
if you'd
sure.
like.
Yes.
So, okay. So from pre-K through 5, okay, the shift is that now we should be teaching, you should be balancing information. Where in this area, 50% of the literacy is what the students read. It should come from informational text, from pre-K through 5th grade. So they're just reading for information, all right? From grade 6 through 12, it becomes knowledge, and in the disciplines, okay? So literally, you have to include literary experiences, okay? You need to have domain and specific text. You need to be expected to learn from, the students are expected from grade 6 through 12 now to learn from what they read through a specific text, all right? That's the second shift, okay, knowledge in the discipline. The third shift becomes a staircase of maybe complexity. And it's basically where you prepare the students for college and career ready, with college and career ready text. They start reading grade level appropriate text. And then, around instruction, they have close reading, what you call a close reading. And where in a close reading is where, you get your Post-it notes and you start reading really close and making notes. And then you begin to scaffold. What we have to do for those students that may be reading below grade level is that we have to scaffold, the reading for the below level students. And this is where you have to integrate those targeted interventions for kids. They must be targeted. You just can't pull an intervention out of a hat. You've got to know the skills that need to be given the intervention to and make sure it's targeted. And then the fourth shift is the text-based answers, where conversations, that are rich and rigorous, through certain things, through common text evidence. It must be stated from a text. So, the students should be able to say on page 50, it states that, on page 50, it states that, the shoes that the the Indians, the Carib Indians were wearing were made, but they have to give those specific answers, all right? And they can even state the page number. Okay. And then within that basis, arguments are made, through writing as well as conversations to show that the children are comprehending. So those are text-based answers. So from those text-based answers, they can develop an argument, through their writing. This is where you start teaching writing within there. And then, the fifth shift is, writing for sources. Evidence is used to make an argument rather than personal narrative. It must focus on events and ideas, facts from the text. So it's an era of fact-finding. You must know the exact fact. And then the sixth shift in literacy is the academic vocabulary, or, the complex, areas within the grade. And that, the grade, such as you start using words such as the discourse, where we use the word discourse for a conversation. Instead of using the vocabulary and saying, let's talk about it, you can say, let's dialogue about it. Or the word discourse is the higher level vocabulary. Okay. That's the sixth shift within literacy. And then you use words such as theory, instead of remember when we used to use the word onomatopoeias? I can't even say that word. Onomatopoeia. We used to say that as kids. Students should now, access more complex text across the content areas and be able to use, so instead of saying homonyms, we can say, we can use the word onomatopoeia, or we can use, discourse for theory and that type of thing. So they have to be exposed to those complex text vocabulary. And so going on to the shift in math, can you hear me still?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, I just want to make sure. All right. Yes. Going on to the shift in math, the first shift is around concepts. In pre-K through 5, they're now learning concepts. The concepts are prioritized, and they begin to transfer the math skills across concepts and grades. And then the second one is in the area of coherence, where the students start building from the foundational skills and where they pretty much spiral across the grade level. And that's the second shift in math, all right? And where, we begin to extend in math, through the grade levels. And then also extend the concepts through the grade level. So you're thinking of each, as the grade levels build, the concepts are extended. And then the third shift is fluency, which you were talking about as learning multiplication tables. Yes, that still has to be there. There has to be speed and accuracy, and they have to know simple calculation. And they also have to know the multiplication tables, great, example of that. But they also have to be able to transfer them to more complex concepts, like we're saying, knowing the process. And the fourth shift is a deep understanding, where you teach the students how to get the answers, like I said, by thinking about their own thinking, using their metacognitive skills. And then they learn a deep conceptual understanding of the concept. This is where the level of application comes in. It's a more higher level. Students should be able to apply these skills that they've learned in math to new situations, as well as be able to write the process of how they came up with the answers. So it's not only memorizing the process, you have to be able to write it. So now when you look at some math books, and let's say in second grade, again, I'll go back to them teaching 4 times 5 is 20. 4 groups of 5. Not only do they need to say that, they have to sit down and they may need to draw out 4 groups of apples times 5 groups, come up to make 20. And then they have to write it out and give an explanation, of how they came up with the answers. And then, the application part is, then they can choose. They've got to be able to apply the knowledge, where they can choose their application. They can choose an appropriate concept that they can apply, through science. This is where you can embed math within science.
Okay.
So when you've got to be able to transcend, through the different disciplines, the different subject areas. And then the 6th shift is called dual intensity. And this is just a balance between the concepts and the skills. And that it's where they get multi-step problems, and the critical thinking comes in math, and then the use of drills. But the use of drills is they're able to apply them in concepts. And then, so definitely, those are the 6 shifts in literacy and the 6 shifts in math. So as you can tell, it's different than when we were going to school. The rigor is there. It's a little bit, it's more challenging for the students to be able to, to come up with their own concepts, because they have to have a true understanding of the process to be able to do that.
Doctor, is like the Common Core, is like you're setting them up to do a high order thinking. Is that the reality of the whole concept of it?
Yes, it's the reality of the 21st century. The jobs that are going to be available are jobs where adults have to be able to problem solve. And that's why if you look, within the country and across, the world, in our country, the nation, I guess I'll just keep it to the United States. There's so many engineering jobs. There's so many jobs to do with problem solving out there and those are the jobs that have the higher pay when students, go into the workforce, whether they go to career and technical ed or whether they go to, 4-year college, start out with community. But problem solving is key. You have to know processes and problem solving, because you're no longer preparing kids for a local economy. You're preparing them to think globally.
Right.
And so that's why it's so important to do that, And so, yes, if you have to be able to problem solve in the 21st century, and they're higher order thinking skills, and you're going to have to be able to problem solve in a group or collaboratively too.
Yes.
So that's important.
Yes. Well, one of the questions I want to ask you, Doctor, is how much does it cost to implement the Common Core standard? Is there some dollar amount? To switch over to that?
Well, you know what, and that's what I'm saying. There is money involved. It just depends. But what you have to do, okay? Again, I want people to listen and focus on this. It's about teaching a skill. And it's about teaching a skill, and you teach the skill from the standard. So what you have to do, you don't jump on the next flavor of the day curriculum because they say that, our resources can help deliver the Common Core. You have to really study the standards or the skills in the Common Core. You have to look at what you need, what you have. You have to do a needs assessment. So if we have complex text already in the school district, informational text, you're going to go ahead and you're going to keep those and you're going to use them because they have what you need to teach a skill. Again, you have to focus on teaching the skill, not teaching the textbook or teaching the, you have to teach the skill. So it just depends, like I said, but there are lots of things that are already in school districts that can be used. You can also partner with stakeholders throughout the community. You can talk to colleges. You can talk to the business folks in the community. I know one of the things that, like the Rotary Club up here, they partner with schools a lot. They give, vocabulary books. They used to come and give dictionaries, but then, it's changed now where they're now, they can give, books or vocabulary books or different things like that. So you have to really be intentional. It is not easy work leading schools or leading school districts, but it has to be a collaborative effort, and you cannot be a leader who does not know what is going on within your schools. You can delegate. You have to delegate. You have to empower others. But you have to always model what you're asking for. And you have to let others that you're leading know that you're working side by side with them. You have to learn with them along the way. And know what you're talking about, before, along with them, so that you can all work together. It's a collaborative effort. So there is some dollars involved, but, I just think that I hear it so much, and it just gives me chills how it's like the scapegoat or the big excuse, the Common Core. I want to say, listen up. The Common Core is way up at the top. You have to make what's going on in your schools and the school districts every day. That's what counts. Mm-hmm. What's happening before those kids. So look at the Common Core, yeah. But if you begin with the end in mind, but you have a solid curriculum, solid local curriculum, solid professional development, a solid program that delivers targeted intervention to students, whether they need to be enhanced or whether they need to scaffold. So for the lower reading, you as long as you have that in place, the Common Core will come. You'll pass those tests, but you have to get your everyday foundation right.
Okay.
But it must be aligned to the standards and the skills that are needed as dictated by the Common Core, if that's what you have chosen, or by your state standards. So the Virgin Islands has adopted the Common Core, but then the Virgin Islands should have their own standards based on what the Common Core says. So for Pennsylvania, we adopted the Common Core, but for our math standards, when we were delivering them, at State Department, we use some of the international baccalaureate math standards. So the math standards in Pennsylvania is actually more rigorous than the Common Core standards for math. All right?
Okay.
So you've got to take the Common Core standard and make it your own. But you can make your delivery your own. Just deliver the standard. It's not, and you just take it and make it your own, and that's the way you do it. But you have to know what you're doing, or you have to bring in the professional development to educate others on how to do this.
Okay.
Let me ask you a quick question, Doctor. There was a talk concerning the prison to pipeline, initiative, or how this thing works. And within our school system, it seems like they come in from a third grade and they do their assessments and know how much prison to build within a community. Within the Common Core, will that eliminate this?
The Common Core, okay, so let me explain. I was on the White House Discipline, the committee on which talks just about this, the pipeline to prison. All right, I participated. I still am in the groups, So what it says is if a student is not reading by third grade, that has been some of the research that shows that those are some of the students that are integrated in our prison system. But it also goes back to discipline, suspension rates, excluding children, pulling kids out of class, sitting them outside. It comes into can also be seen as a faith issue of denying them a free and appropriate education, because for those minutes that they're missing because of discipline issues, or they're getting suspended for 5 days, so this is where the whole thing is coming in about building a pipeline to prison. It has nothing to do with the Common Core. A lot of it has to do with discipline in schools and not having equity across how you're disciplined within a school or within a district. You have to have, and I know the Virgin Islands has this, positive school-wide behavior system where if I'm in your class in 5th grade and I don't turn in my homework, if this teacher takes off 2 points, then the other fifth grade teacher better take off 2 points. It has to be consistent. So those are just some things that the research is saying about the pipeline to prison. And I have to give my colleague, his name is Lance Chase, and he went to the University of Pennsylvania with me. We both got our doctorate. But he is the principal for Rikers Island. And his dissertation concentrated on just that, the pipeline to prison with black males. Right. So Lance is a really good resource if anybody down there needs to get in touch with him. He's actually the principal at Rikers Island prison as we speak. Okay. And he's done extensive research. So, the pipeline to prison piece goes back to, with discipline. It also goes back to looking at not giving kids those targeted interventions they need, really looking at children and developing those progression plans for individual students. Really, and how looking at the environmental factors of children and not giving them those therapeutic or pointing their parents to those therapeutic services that they may need. Like not doing things like, if you know that a child is having an emotional problem, you get them off the bus in the morning and you may have a triage. It's just really sewing into. So there's so much showing, and building the pipeline of prison, but it has nothing to do with the Common Core.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Just wanted to clear that up.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're in the Pennsylvania School District. So are all the districts across the United States on this Common Core? Are they using this?
No. Some school districts, I think Missouri, and don't quote me on this, has only adopted like the literacy pieces. Virginia has not adopted it. There's a few states that had adopted it, then decided they didn't want it anymore. It's totally by choice.
Okay, so it's not a federally mandated.
No, it's not mandated. It's not a non-negotiable.
So you could choose. You could make
there's
a
choice.
Right. Okay.
Your state can adopt it, or your state don't have to adopt it.
Okay.
But if you're not going to adopt it, I would say be cautious and make sure that your local curriculum is really effective and has those 21st century skills and it's innovative and has those skills that children need so that when they leave your school district, that we're not doing just that, building a pipeline to prison. We're building a pipeline where children can become productive citizens and come back and give back to their communities and give to the world.
So how do we
locally and globally?
So how do we effectively choose make the evaluate? I guess we'll do evaluations on the system to see if it's working or.
Yes, you have to do a needs enhancement. I think if you look at what kids need, if you're having those conversations with higher ed, all right?
Right.
And you're having a conversation looking at the workforce and what type of skills are going to be needed. And you look at your school district and you're saying, well, we already had this in our curriculum, we already had this in our local curriculum, we already had this. Then we don't need. Okay, fine. You have to do a needs assessment. And I said there, baby, you may have to. And with every school district, there is something in them that's working. All right. So what is working based on the data. You cannot just pull the information out of your head. You must have qualitative and quantitative data. And data takes the subjectivity out of it. It takes the personal pieces out of it. It's a point of conversation. You must become a system where data drives your decision making. All right? Data. And you must start with the data, and then that's how you look at the data, what's needed, and then you begin to craft, your curriculum. So you look at the data, you look at your student performance, you look at the knowledge base of your teachers, you look at what kind of resources you're using, you look at your stakeholders and make sure that you're collaborating with them, how you're bringing them in to help you, across the district to help expose children. You have to look at the whole child. You have to make sure, again, I'm such a proponent of professionally developing teachers. Teachers and principals have to be a part of the learning with the teachers because it's imperative that they are not sitting in those offices, that they're going into those classrooms and not just once or twice when it's time to give the teacher an evaluation. You should always be visible within your building. Sit down and set up a schedule. And if you have an assistant principal, set up a schedule. Either somebody's going in the morning or somebody's going in the afternoon. And the purpose of going into a teacher classroom first should not be to write something negative on the evaluation.
Right.
It should be going in where you have learned how to deliver that instruction with them and to support them and work side by side with them at first so that they're comfortable and can come and tell you, Dr. Pennyman, this thing about teaching informational text, I'm just not getting it. Here's what I've done. Sit down with them. You said, okay, what do you need? You team them up, and then once you have exhausted every single possibility that teacher has told you that they need, and you have taught them how to fish for themselves, then you can go back and say, well, I've done everything, and it's not working, so now we have to figure out. But you do not go into a teacher's classroom to write something bad on their evaluation. You know what? If you mess up the culture and climate of your school, those children will never learn effectively, because if the culture and the climate and the morale is not good in your school or the district, it's going right back into that classroom. And the regional superintendents, the assistant superintendents, everybody needs to be learning. Leadership is not just about sitting at the top. It's about serving. And leaders who don't believe that they're serving have no business being leaders.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, on a personal note, when are you looking are you putting up a resume to come back to deal with our education,
well,
system here, Doctor?
Everybody knows right now that, I think, not everybody, but I've made it known that I have the knowledge, I have the skills. I've been, in urban and suburban districts,
right,
because my husband's occupation used to move us around to different states, because when he was with General Electric, without going into. So I have seen both sides of the world.
Right.
I have seen, and I have worked in low-income school districts, high-income school districts, very challenging. But I know for a fact that you can look at the data. Every school that I've worked at as a principal, assistant principal, we have always made gains because I've always gone from the data and gone from the evidence.
Right.
But you have to really tap into that. So like you said, I am here. I have always said to David in our sidebar conversations and everybody else that I've spoken to, I am here as a resources. I know the teacher effective tools left and right. I know the shifts. I was a part of, I was in New York when they implemented the Common Core, which is one of the first states, when they implemented the teacher effectiveness tool. I have a very strong, I taught special ed for 14 years, so I know how to give targeted interventions. My dissertation was on response to interventions, and I implemented a framework in four different school districts. So I am here as a resource. I'm just not tooting my horn because I have the evidence to show. And I am not trying to, I'll be more than happy to come home.
That's what we need.
If they hire me to come and give professional development, I can come down and help in any way.
Right.
And then we can use technology where we can correspond in between.
Yes.
I am not trying to take anybody's position, but I do have a passion and a heart that I want to see the children, of the territory being exited with skills that they need for the 21st century. And when I listen and I look and I hear, there's a huge disconnect too. There needs to be some equity across all three islands. I guess that's the way I would put it from what I'm reading and seeing, and like I said, the teachers are working their tails off. I know that. And, everybody's working their tails off. But, we have to learn how to think outside the box.
That's right.
And we have to definitely know what the definition of insanity is. And we have to know that, we can't keep doing things the same way or we won't get different results. But I have seen, though, because, where there are some changes being made, which are great, and it's going to take time. Everything takes time. But I say, you have to, it's not about the adults in the school system, and they need to take those fears away and go ahead and, bring supports like myself on to be a resource to them. where they know, take the fears off, because they can learn from me as well as I can learn from them, and it's a reciprocal learning. Leadership should be a reciprocal approach, and it also, we need to take ourselves out of it, because when those children don't exit our school districts with what they need, and our prison systems are overflowing, then there is something inside of us that we should start questioning. Was I a part of the process? Right. Did I do everything? So we have to be mindful. Ask yourself, which pipeline are you building? Are you building a pipeline to prison? Are you building a pipeline to having successful students who could achieve in a both local and global society for the 21st century? So that's, and keep the main thing. Keep the children at the forefront.
Yes. Dr. Pennyman, let me ask you a question. So the Virgin Islands has adopted the Common Core. So do you know, how do I say this? Do you know how is it going? Is there any feedback on that?
Well, so last year in Pennsylvania was the first year that we took the test. So, and with any change, you're going to see a dip with anything new, all right? Because, so what we did, like the Virgin Islands and all this, is that the scores did not count in Pennsylvania. But what we're doing with our scores now, that we use them as a baseline to look and see how the children did. Again, the data. And then we in each school district can say, okay, well, you know what? We noticed that our children tanked on the problem-solving question, or it was a calculation question in math, or when it came to, reading a passage and giving evidence straight from the text. So now what we're going to do with this data, we must pull the data and look at our data, all right? And then we're going to say, this is how we plan for instruction this year. So now we will be taking our test in pretty soon, a few weeks. And so we won't have our results that's really going to count until next year. So we have to wait for that. Now in New York, I can tell you one thing. New York, the first couple of years, the first year, same thing, okay? But I can tell you, I can quote schools right now where I worked as the chief of schools in Rochester, helped to implement the Common Core. And yes, I had a school number 25, and you can Google it right now. Nathaniel Hawthorne School was under my leadership in Rochester, where we implemented the Common Core. They have a 37% student population that has IEP. And the principal emailed me last week, and she was just so happy, and she thanked all of us that work with her, the team. And I said, it's your leadership and it's your team. It has nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. The school is now in good standing in the state of New York.
Wow. Okay.
So it can be done. You just have to, it's hard, be intentional. You have to go from data, and you have to include others and give the professional development and know how to cater instruction to the learning, to the skills and to the needs of each child. You have to know how to differentiate instruction.
But no specifics here on the Virgin Islands, because I think from the Common Core website, there's a little map of the Virgin Islands, and you click on it, and it says that the Virgin Islands adopted the Common Core, I think in 2010, I think is what it said.
Yeah, it started in 2010. Now, from what I heard from looking at some of the different, testimony, it may have, but I think the different islands were at different places with the training and the professional development. Okay. Which that's what when we talk about bringing equity across. Right. There should be equity across the islands. They have to look at the data for St. Croix, look at the data for St. Thomas, and look at, they need to start figuring out how to bring equity. The buildings in St. Croix need to be buildings and lighting and the environment all play a part in students' learning.
Definitely. They don't seem
play a part in students' learning, and they have to be able to bring, and just if St. Croix gets a new building, it's fine, because St. Croix needed a new building. Right. Maybe St. Thomas didn't need a new building, but maybe they needed new band equipment for the high school. Yeah. It's all about equity and what's needed.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Soup?
No. And Doctor, again, You know, you have a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, she's got a lot of knowledge,
and
man.
we really, 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 really love to have you here in our education system here.
Thank you. As you guys can tell, it's my passion. I love what
definitely,
I do.
Yes.
You know, I think I'm walking in my purpose, and I so do want to help out. And I just want people years out of things, and you know, I don't ever want to come across as intimidating others or anything, but you know, I do know, and I want to share what I know. When you're knowledgeable about something, you don't keep it to yourself, because
that's
it's
what knowledge
worthless.
is.
Then
you're
supposed to give it
yes,
back, you know.
sure.
And so, and it's not about me. It's just making sure that, you know, those precious gems, those precious children, leave the public schools with an education, so that they can want to come back and yes, stomp out that pipeline to prison.
Yes.
You know, engage them in the classroom and engage them where they can see, you know, beyond the Virgin Islands, and they can, you know, and start, you know, UVI is very involved, so which is great. You know, I know St. Croix Foundation is very involved, you know. So it's an all hands on deck, all boots on the ground approach that has to happen.
Right.
You know, definitely. And so, as you guys can see, that is my passion, and you know, I'm waiting to hear. Like, I think I saw something the other day that says they had a position that says somebody to come and train on a teacher effectiveness tool for $45,000. Well, you know what? You don't have to pay somebody for $45,000. You know, they're already talking about the, you know, the deficits, you know, within the school district.
Right.
They don't have to pay $45,000. They can ask. They can always tap into me. I can come down and train on a teacher effectiveness tool for much, much less than $45,000.
Okay, so we.
I mean, you know, it's huge. So I'm just saying, you know, it's huge. You don't have to, and then you don't have. The person don't have to. If you train and then you professionally develop the teachers, professionally develop the principals, and all you have to do is make sure that if they have a question, that they can send it to you through technology, or they have access where they can, you know. Or they develop a check and balance system where those teachers have a common plan time where they can go and discuss, you know, with a director or whoever, you know. So, you know, there's just ways, but teachers have to have common plan time, and they should be discussing data and students learning in those common plan times.
All right.
See, I said one quick thing. We seem that we need to take better data here in the territory, because it seems like said that's
that's one thing we don't do well.
We don't do well here. So
collecting data.
Well, I think the data is there, because if they're taking that smart balance test, it's all the data is there, and those testing programs, they do a plethora of things for you. They give you graphs, they give you visuals, they give you qualitative and quantitative data. So they have the data.
So they have the data.
Just
to implement now. Just
and
gotcha.
Integrating it and making it used to guide decisions.
Okay. All right, Dr. Pennyman, it's been a pleasure talking to you as usual. Keep doing what you're doing, and keep our youth first and foremost in mind, because they are our today and our tomorrow.
And the next day.
You know.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, you know, to be able to, and thank you for the humbling opportunity, I should say, to be able to, you know, speak, you know, to education. And I hope that you had some good listeners tonight, and that they will get something out of something that I say. And, you know, I definitely am here as a resource. So you guys take it easy and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
All right. Thank you very much. That's Dr. Juliette Jarvis-Pennyman. Thank you so much. All right.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Yeah, that was Dr. Juliette Jarvis-Pennyman. She's a Crucian lady, I guess is how I would put that. And she is also the assistant superintendent of schools in the greater Philadelphia area.
Right.
Got a lot of knowledge on education.
Yeah, man, and we need our education system to really improve, to really come up to where it needs to be here, because our youths are coming out of high school, going into college, and still got to take these remedial courses and stuff like that. And it makes us look bad at the territory, and make the youth them feel bad too amongst their peers.
Yes.
You understand me? So they've been 12 years of school to come out of college, and they're expecting to go into college to start.
Yeah.
So
they're not on the same playing level.
Exactly. So again, everybody got to really take these youths really, really serious. Again, we say they are our future, but they are not our future. They are today. They are today and our tomorrow. You know, and if we really expect our society, our community, and everything else to change automatically,
better,
we gotta start with these. We gotta start with our youths, you know, and make sure education is a major, if not the number one priority for them.
Yeah.
Health, wealth, you know what I mean, sound mind, a clean, healthy environment to live in and to come up and to be healthy, productive, and individuals of the society when they grow older and come back and contribute, you know. So
yeah, that's what we want them to do, is be able to go away and get educated and experience some life and come back and share here.
Yeah, because too much of us leave and go away and don't ever want to come back because what? There's nothing here. We claiming there's nothing here for us to do. But again, if we make it happen,
it will happen.
It will happen.
Yeah.
But it have to start with us. We have to really want this to really happen. You know what I mean? So let's see what's going to happen, Kimber. You know?
Man. That was Dr. Juliette Jarvis-Pennyman. Like I said, she's a Crucian from St. Croix here, Virgin Islands, Assistant Superintendent of Schools in the Greater Philadelphia area. Thank you so much for coming out. She was on here, I guess, 2-3 months ago.
Right.
Sort of talking roughly about the same sorts of things. And like she said, and we hear it all the time, she has a great passion for education. She's got a lot of knowledge. And, you know, just with, and I think she did a stint too with teaching with disabled kids, I guess she said there.
Special education kids
as well. So that in itself is
very rounded. She covers all bases in education.
So she has the discipline to understand, and more importantly, she has the patience
to deal with it.
So thank you, Dr. Pennyman. We'll have you on again here soon. Soup, any final words, man?
Rastafari live, one perfect love to one and all.
Yeah, man. And a real quick, Soup, I just want to say that this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We do have a show tomorrow night with brother Gary James, local author here. He's been posting about it. There's a specific topic he's going to be talking about. I can't think of it right now, but he will be here tomorrow. Always some good, interesting conversation from Gary. And I got a few questions for him this time, Soup. You know, as we move on with the whole election process. We just had the transfer day here. You know, he's got a book out called Transfer Day. So some questions about that as well.
Right.
But One Perfect Love is simply our prayers and his blessings. When you put it all together, you get one perfect love. So on that note, we're out, and we'll see you guys tomorrow, Thursday. Author Gary James will be here in the studio to continue his conversation, man. So we're out. Peace. Later.